My ex-husband told the judge my son wanted to live with him, but then my son pulled out his phone and showed the proof that netted me $180,000. I never imagined that the most painful words of my life would be heard in a Chicago courtroom, spoken by the man who had once promised to love me forever. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I would. And if you, for just a second, feel like this sounds familiar, I only ask that you leave a like and subscribe. It will help me to keep unburdening myself. It was 9 in the morning when I arrived at the Circuit Court of Cook County on West Randolph Street. I was wearing my navy blue dress, the same one I'd bought for my cousin's wedding 3 years ago. My low heels echoed against the marble floor as I walked through those hallways that smelled of disinfectant and old paper. My hands trembled slightly as I clutched the brown leather handbag that had been my mother's, pressing it against my chest as if it were a shield. Jack was there, sitting next to his lawyer, with that smile I knew so well, the same one that had made me fall in love 25 years ago, when we worked together at the insurance office on Michigan Avenue. Now that smile made me sick to my stomach. Beside him sat Paige, his new wife, a woman 15 years younger than me, with platinum blonde hair and perfectly manicured nails that had never scrubbed a floor or changed a diaper. "Your Honor," Jack said, his deep voice once calming but now making my teeth grind. "My ex-wife, Helen, is no longer in a condition to care for our son, Matthew. He has asked me for help himself. He says his mother gets the days mixed up, that she repeats the same phrases over and over, that he can no longer trust her decisions." I felt as if someone had plunged a knife between my ribs and was slowly twisting it. Matthew, my boy, my only son, was sitting in the front row, his head down, staring at his shoes as if they were the most interesting thing in the world. He was wearing the same white shirt I had ironed for him just a week before when he came over for Sunday dinner. The same shirt he had worn when he hugged me and said, "Mom, you're the best thing I have in this world." "Just a few days ago," Paige continued, her voice sweet but laced with venom, "Helen called Matthew at 3 in the morning, thinking he was her doctor. She told him he had an 8 a.m. appointment for some tests that were actually from 6 months ago. My stepson is worried, very worried. The air in my lungs grew thick. What was this woman talking about? When had I called at 3 in the morning? My memory replayed the last few days like a slow-motion film. True, I had called Matthew to ask about the doctor's results, but it had been at 8 at night, not in the morning, and I hadn't confused anything. I was just nervous about some routine tests my primary care physician had ordered. "Your Honor," Jack insisted, "my son is a legal adult, he's 23, but he still needs guidance. And frankly, I don't think Helen is in a position to give it to him. Look at her. She hasn't said a single word since we arrived." The judge, a man in his 50s with gold-rimmed glasses, looked at me over his papers. His eyes were cold, clinical, as if he were evaluating a broken machine instead of a 62-year-old woman who had dedicated her entire life to raising her son alone. My mind flew back to that March afternoon in 1999, when Matthew was just 7, and Jack decided he no longer wanted to be saddled with a family. I remember it perfectly. I was making dinner, a hearty chili, Matthew's favorite dish. Jack came home from work with a suitcase already packed and said, "Helen, this isn't working. I'm leaving." Just like that, with no further explanation, no drama, like someone announcing they were going out to buy bread. I was left alone with a child who asked every night when Dad was coming back. I worked 3 different jobs. I cleaned offices in the Loop before dawn, watched Mrs. Carla's kids in the afternoon, and hemmed clothes at night under the yellowy glow of the dining room lamp. My fingers still bear the small scars from needles that pricked me when exhaustion overcame me past midnight. I never asked for help. I never chased Jack for child support. I raised Matthew with the dignity my parents had taught me in the small Illinois town where I grew up, where women learned that honor was built with hard work and silence. "Do you have anything to say, Mrs. Miller?" the judge asked me. I opened my mouth, but the words got stuck in my throat like dry breadcrumbs. What could I say? That for 16 years I had been both father and mother. That I had broken my back working so Matthew could study computer science at the University of Illinois, Chicago? That I had sold my mother's jewelry to pay for his first year's tuition? I just want to know why, after everything I did for him, why my son thinks I'm not good enough anymore, I murmured. feeling tears burn my eyes. Matthew lifted his head for the first time all morning. His eyes, the same honey color as mine, looked at me with a mixture of guilt and determination I couldn't interpret. "Mom, it's for your own good. Dad can help you better than I can," he said, his voice barely audible. Those words were like a punch to the gut. My boy, the same one who had cried in my arms when his classmates teased him for not having a father, was now handing me over to the man who had abandoned us as if we were an old piece of furniture to be discarded. The judge took notes in silence. The scratching of his pen against the paper was the only sound in that room, which suddenly felt enormous and frigid. A gray February light streamed through the window, the kind of Chicago morning where the sky seems like a low, oppressive ceiling. I remembered the smell of the muffins I used to bake for Matthew every Sunday, the sweet batter mixing with the scent of the lemon verbena I grew in the kitchen window. I remembered his laughter when I taught him how to make mac and cheese bites, his small hands trying to shape the gooey pasta while I told him stories of my childhood in the country. Now my apartment was silent. The plants had withered because Matthew no longer came for Sunday dinner. The kitchen smelled of emptiness. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the kitchen until dawn, a cold cup of chamomile tea in my hands, looking at the photos stuck to the refrigerator door. Matthew at 8, missing his 2 front teeth, smiling in his St. Patrick High School uniform. Matthew at 12, hugging me on the beach in Saugatuck during our only vacation together. Matthew at 18, on his graduation day, with that proud smile that made me forget all the sacrifices. Sacrifices? The word tasted bitter in my mouth, like the reheated coffee I had drunk too many times during those years of solitude. I got up and went to the hall closet, where I kept a shoebox full of memories. My fingers trembled as I lifted the lid. There they were, all the receipts I had saved as if they were diplomas of honor. University tuition, $4,500 for the first year. Computer science textbooks, $600 each semester. The laptop he needed for his projects, $1,500 that took me 8 months to pay off, working double shifts at the cleaning company. I remembered that January morning in 2020 when Matthew woke me up crying because he had failed Calculus de Secu and needed to retake the course. "Mom, it's another $500. I'm so sorry. I know we don't have the money," he had said, his eyes swollen. I had gotten up, made him some tea with honey, and stroked his hair like when he was a little boy. "Don't worry, sweetie. We'll figure it out," I told him, though I knew perfectly well I'd have to ask for an advance at work and live on rice and beans for 2 months. The next day, I had gone to see Carol, the owner of the corner bakery where I bought bread every morning. "Carol, do you need any help in the afternoons? My son needs to retake a class and—" I didn't finish the sentence because she was already nodding with that maternal understanding that only women who have raised children alone possess. "You can come from 5 to 9, Helen. I'll pay you $10 an hour. It's not much, but it's something." For 4 months, after cleaning offices until 3 in the afternoon, I went to the bakery to help with the after-school rush. My hands, already cracked from cleaning chemicals, became covered in small burns from the ovens. But when Matthew passed Calculus 2 with a B, I felt that every blister had been worth it. The box held more painful treasures. The orthodontist's bill when Matthew needed braces at 14, $3,200, which I paid in 24 monthly installments of $133. Every month, as I made the transfer, I repeated a mantra to myself: it's for his smile, it's for his future. The same future he now wanted to build far away from me, as if I were a stone in his path instead of the foundation upon which he had been built. I found the receipt for the suit I bought him for his first job interview, $250 at Macy's on State Street. "Mom, it doesn't have to be this expensive," he had said, while trying on the navy blue jacket in front of the mirror. "A son of mine is not going to an interview in cheap clothes," I had replied with a firmness I didn't know I had. The same firmness that now seemed to have evaporated in that courtroom. I pulled out a blue notebook, worn from use, where I had written down all of Matthew's expenses over the years. It was my habit to note every dollar I spent on him, not to ever claim it back, but to remind myself that every sacrifice had a purpose. The yellowed pages told the story of a mother who had forgone her own life to build her son's. September 2017. University tuition $4,500, books $600, dorm fees $3,000. October 2017, laptop on $500, winter clothes $350, medical copays $150. December 2017, bus ticket home for Christmas $90, gifts $250, special dinner $60, page after page, year after year. Sums I could never recover, not in money, but in time, in lost opportunities, in the life I didn't live because I was too busy building his. How many times had I turned down invitations from friends because I didn't have a suitable outfit to wear? How many times had I stayed home on a Saturday night while other women my age enjoyed a dinner, a movie, a conversation that didn't revolve around their children's grades or the price of college textbooks? I remembered Mike, the electrician who came to fix the wiring in the apartment in 2019. He was a nice man, a widower like me, with kind eyes and hard-working hands. He had invited me out for coffee after finishing the job. "Helen, I like you. I think we could get to know each other better," he had said with that charming shyness of mature men. I had smiled and mumbled something about not having time, about Matthew needing my attention for his final exams. The truth was, I didn't have a decent dress for a date. The truth was, I had been Matthew's mom for so long that I had forgotten how to be Helen. The truth was, every dollar I could have spent on myself had automatically become something for him, his needs, his future, his happiness. Continuing with the notebook. January 2021, internship suits $400, shoes $120, graduation gift $250. June 2021, graduation party $300, professional photos $150, celebration dinner $200. His graduation day had been the happiest of my life. Matthew had walked across the stage at the UIC pavilion to receive his degree in computer science, and when he said into the microphone, "Thanks to my mom, who sacrificed everything for me," I had felt that every hour of lost sleep, every skipped meal, every "I can't afford it," had found its purpose. Now, those same words sounded hollow in my memory. Sacrificed everything for me? Then why is he handing me over like a useless package to his father? I closed the notebook and put it back in the box. The sun was already rising outside the kitchen window, tinging the tiles I had scrubbed thousands of times over the years with orange. I poured myself another tea, hot this time, and sat watching the street wake up. Neighbors left for work, children walked to school. Life went on as if my world hadn't shattered into pieces just 12 hours earlier. The phone rang. It was Matthew. "Mom, are you okay? You barely said anything in court yesterday." His voice sounded different, more adult, colder, as if he were a stranger asking out of politeness. "I'm fine, son," I lied, pressing the receiver to my ear. "Dad says we can see you on Sunday. Paige is making paella. He says she's a great cook." Paella. The woman who had replaced me was going to cook my favorite dish to entertain the son I had raised alone. The son who now preferred her paella to the chili he had learned to love from my mother's recipe. "I don't know if I can, Matthew. I have things to do." Silence on the other end of the line. A silence that stretched until it became uncomfortable. "Mom, you know this is for your own good, right? Dad has a bigger house. Paige can take better care of you than I can. Take care of you." As if I were a decrepit old woman instead of a 62-year-old who still worked 8 hours a day and kept her home spotless. "Son, I don't need anyone to take care of me. I need to be respected." Another silence. "Mom, don't be so dramatic. We already talked about this." Dramatic? My pain was drama to him? I hung up the phone without saying goodbye. For the first time in 23 years, I hung up on my son. And instead of feeling guilty, I felt something akin to relief. The next few days passed in a gray haze. I woke up each morning hoping it had all been a nightmare, that the phone would ring and it would be Matthew saying, "Mom, forgive me. I made a terrible mistake." But the phone remained silent, and my apartment filled with a silence I had never noticed before. On Tuesday, I received a call from the clinic where I had an appointment with Dr. Herrera to get my annual test results. "Mrs. Miller, your son called to cancel your appointment. He said you've been confused and that he will be handling your medical affairs from now on," the receptionist informed me in a mechanical voice. My blood ran cold. "My son called? When?" "Yesterday morning, ma'am. He seemed very concerned. He said you've been mixing up dates and times lately. I hung up the phone with trembling hands. Matthew had called my doctor, without consulting me, without telling me anything, as if I were an irresponsible child who couldn't manage her own affairs. I immediately dialed the clinic's number and asked to speak with Dr. Herrera. Doctor, this is Helen Miller. My son canceled my appointment without my authorization. I want you to know that I am perfectly lucid and that no one has the right to make medical decisions for me. Dr. Herrera, a middle-aged woman who had known me for 10 years, sighed on the other end of the line. Helen, your son sounded very convincing. He said you had been having episodes of confusion, mixing up dates. Doctor, you know me. Have I ever shown signs of confusion during my visits? An uncomfortable silence. No, Helen, never. You've always been very organized with your appointments and very clear about your symptoms. But your son, my son, is lying, I said, with a clarity that surprised me. I rescheduled my appointment for Friday, but something inside me had broken. Trust. The blind faith that my son would never hurt me. On Wednesday afternoon, as I was returning from buying bread at Carol's Bakery, I ran into Paige in the lobby of my building. She was wearing a beige cashmere coat that probably cost more than my salary for 3 months, and a designer handbag I recognized from the shop windows on Oak Street. Helen, what a coincidence seeing you here, she said with that fake smile that set my teeth on edge. I live here, Paige. It's not a coincidence, I replied dryly. Oh, right. I forget sometimes. With age, you know, memory isn't what it used to be, she said with a condescending tone that made me clench my jaw. With age? I was 62, not 90. Do you need something? I asked, knowing she hadn't come by chance. Well, yes, actually. Jack and I are worried. Matthew told us you've been a bit forgetful lately, calling at odd hours, confusing medical appointments. There was the strategy. Repeat the lie so many times that even I would start to doubt it. Paige, I don't know what Matthew has told you, but I am perfectly fine. Of course you are, dear. But you know how children are. They always exaggerate. The thing is, we were thinking, well, Jack was thinking, that maybe it would be good for you to come spend a few days with us. So you can rest a bit, so you don't have to worry about anything. So I don't have to worry about anything. As if living were too heavy a burden for me. I don't need to rest, Paige. I need my family to stop treating me like I'm useless. Her smile grew tighter. No one is saying you're useless, Helen. But at my age, I interrupted her. You're 47, I'm 62. We are not the same age. She blushed slightly. I had hit her insecurity right on the head. Being the second wife, the one who came after, the one who had to constantly prove she was better than me. Well, the point is that Jack thinks it would be better if Jack wants to tell me something, he can come himself. He hasn't spoken to me directly in 24 years. He's not going to start now using a messenger. The smile vanished completely. There's no need to get like that, Helen. We just want to help. Help me. Another word I had started to hate. That night, sitting on my couch watching the WGN news, the doorbell rang. It was 10:30. Too late for a casual visit. It was Matthew. He was carrying a plastic bag from Jewel Osco and an expression I couldn't read. Hi, Mom. I brought you some things. I thought maybe you hadn't had time to go shopping. Shopping. As if I were a decrepit old woman unable to go to the supermarket. Son, I went shopping yesterday. My fridge is full. Yeah, but I wanted to make sure. He walked in uninvited and went straight to the kitchen. He opened the fridge and began inspecting its contents like a detective looking for clues of my supposed incompetence. Mom, you have expired milk, he said, pulling out a carton that had indeed passed its sell-by date by 2 days. And these yogurts expired today, he added, showing me a pack of plain yogurt. Matthew, that's normal. Everyone has a product that goes past its date. It doesn't mean I'm losing my mind. He looked at me with that expression of forced patience that adults use with stubborn children. Mom, it's not just this. It's everything. The late-night calls, canceling doctor's appointments. I didn't cancel any doctor's appointment. You were the one who called the doctor without my permission. He fell silent. For a moment, I saw a flicker of guilt in his eyes. I did it for your own good, Mom. You're stressed. You're not thinking clearly. I'm stressed because my own son is conspiring against me with his father. I'm not conspiring against anyone. We just want what's best for you. What's best for me? The third phrase I had started to detest. And what is best for me, according to you all? He sat in one of the kitchen chairs, the same one where he had eaten cereal every morning before school. Mom, Dad has a big house in Naperville. Paige is there during the day. She could keep you company. You wouldn't have to worry about anything. Food, cleaning, doctor's appointments. I wouldn't have to worry about anything because I would have no control over anything. And what about my apartment? You could rent it out. With that money, you'd have enough for your personal expenses. Rent it out. My home, the place where I had raised my son, where all my memories were, where every corner knew me and I knew it. Matthew, do you really think I'm losing my mind? He looked me in the eye for the first time in the whole conversation, and in that moment, I saw something that broke my heart. Pity. He was looking at me with pity. The way you look at a wounded animal that needs to be put down. Mom, I think you're lonely, that this loneliness is affecting you, and that you need to be surrounded by people who will take care of you. I'm not lonely by choice, son. I'm lonely because for 23 years I put your life ahead of mine, because I turned down opportunities, friendships, potential partners, all to be available for you. And now that you don't need me anymore, you want to get rid of me. Mom, don't say that. Is it a lie? He didn't answer. He stood up, put the expired milk and yogurts in the Jewel Osco bag, and walked to the door. Think about it, Mom. Dad and Paige are expecting you for lunch on Sunday. We'll talk calmly. After he left, I sat in the kitchen until very late, staring at the half-empty refrigerator. For the first time, I wondered if maybe they were right. If maybe the loneliness had affected me more than I thought. If maybe it was true that I couldn't take care of myself anymore. But then I remembered something. The previous Friday, when I had gone to Maribel's salon to get my hair cut, I had found a bank statement in my purse that I didn't remember putting there. A statement from my checking account showing a $500 charge that I hadn't authorized. I got up and went to find all my bank papers. I spread them out on the dining room table like a puzzle I needed to solve, and there it was. Not one, but 3 unauthorized charges in the last 2 months. $500 in February, $700 in March, $300 just a week ago. Someone was using my card. Someone had access to my account. And suddenly, the whole strategy became crystal clear. The accusations of mental confusion, the unexpected visits, the lies about my health, they didn't want to take care of me. They wanted to control me. On Saturday morning, I arrived at the Chase Bank on North Michigan Avenue with the bank statements in a blue folder I had bought especially for the occasion. I needed to feel like I had some control over the situation, even if it was the insignificant control of choosing the color of a folder. The branch manager, Mr. Ruiz, received me in his office with that professional smile bankers use when they know you're about to cause them problems. He was a man in his 40s, with gelled hair and a tie that probably cost more than my shoes. Mrs. Miller, I've reviewed your account, and there are indeed some irregular transactions. Who else has access to your card? No one should. I always keep my card in my wallet. But someone obviously knows your PIN. The charges were made with the physical card. They aren't online purchases. My stomach clenched. Only 2 people knew my PIN. Myself and Matthew. I had given it to him years ago so he could withdraw cash in an emergency when I was at work. Mr. Ruiz, I want you to block my card immediately and issue me a new one. Of course. But I must advise you that if you file a fraud complaint, the bank is obligated to investigate. That could involve close family members if they have access to your details. Close family members? The words hung in the air like both a threat and a promise. Do it, I said, with a firmness that surprised me. When I left the bank with my new card, I felt a strange mixture of anger and liberation. For the first time in weeks, I had made a decision without consulting anyone, a decision that protected me instead of others. On Sunday, I arrived at the house in Naperville at 2 o'clock, as I had arranged with Matthew. It was a townhouse in a new development, with a perfect lawn and 2 cars in the driveway, Jack's BMW and Paige's red Mini Cooper. Everything screamed success, stability, the perfect life I had never been able to offer. Paige opened the door with a smile that was too wide and a new apron that still had the crease marks. "Helen, so good to see you. Come in, come in. I made paella, just like Matthew promised." The kitchen smelled of saffron and the sea. An authentic paella, I had to admit. Paige had set the table with her best dinnerware, linen placemats and crystal glasses. Everything perfect, all calculated to impress. Jack appeared from the living room with a newspaper in his hand, and that smile I knew all too well. The smile he used when he wanted something. "Helen, you look great. You look more rested. More rested. As if I had been sick." Matthew was sitting on the living room couch, playing on his phone. When he saw me, he stood up and gave me a kiss on the cheek, but it was a cold, mechanical kiss. "Hi, Mom. How was your week?" "Interesting," I replied, without giving any more details. During lunch, the conversation revolved around safe topics: the weather, the news, Matthew's job at a software company in the Loop. Paige went out of her way to serve me, refilling my plate over and over, asking if I needed more salt, more lemon, more bread. "Helen, you have to admit that Paige is a fantastic cook," Jack said proudly, as if his wife's culinary talents were a reflection of his own worth. "It's very good," I admitted, because it was true. "It's just that I really enjoy cooking for the people I love," Paige said, looking directly at me. "I'd love to cook for you more often, Helen. I really would." There it was. The invitation wrapped in velvet but with thorns inside. "Paige, I've been cooking for myself for 24 years. I don't need anyone to do it for me." An awkward silence fell over the table. Jack cleared his throat, and Matthew continued eating without looking up from his plate. "Of course you don't need it," Paige said with that exaggerated patience adults use with difficult children. "But it would be nice, wouldn't it? To have company, not to have to worry about grocery shopping, about cleaning. I don't see cleaning and cooking as worries. I see them as part of my life, part of my autonomy." Jack put his fork down on his plate with more force than necessary. "Helen, no one is questioning your autonomy. But you have to be realistic. You're not 20 anymore. I'm 62, Jack. Not 90. 62 now isn't what 62 used to be," Paige chimed in with a syrupy voice. "People live longer, but they also need more care. It's natural." "What care do I need exactly?" I asked, looking at each of them in turn. Matthew finally lifted his head. "Mom, on Wednesday I found expired milk in your fridge. And yesterday I found unpaid bills on your table," Jack added. My blood ran cold. "Yesterday? When were you at my house yesterday?" Jack turned red. Matthew has a key. We went to check that you were okay. You entered my house without my permission?" "Mom, I've always had a key," Matthew said defensively. "And we were worried because you weren't answering the phone. I wasn't answering the phone because I was at the bank, fixing a problem with my account." "What problem?" Jack asked with feigned concern. I looked at the three of them. Jack with his air of superiority, Paige with her condescending smile, Matthew avoiding my gaze. "Someone has been using my card without permission. Unauthorized charges for $1,500 in the last 2 months." The silence that followed was so thick you could have cut it with a knife. Paige stopped smiling. Jack cleared his throat nervously. Matthew turned pale. "Mom, it's probably just a mistake by the bank," Matthew began. "It's not a mistake. I spoke with the manager. The charges were made with the physical card, by someone who knows my PIN." Matthew swallowed hard, visibly. "Mom, I've sometimes used your card for emergencies. I didn't think you'd mind." "What emergencies, Matthew?" "Work things, lunches with clients, gas when I forgot to get cash." $1,500 in client lunches?" Jack intervened with a firm voice. "Helen, if Matthew used your card, it was because he saw you were being careless with money. It was a way of protecting you." "Protecting me by stealing from me?" "No one has stolen from you," Paige said, her voice sweet but tense. "Your son used money that is technically also his. After everything you've invested in him, after everything I've invested in him, he owes me respect, not money," I retorted sharply. Matthew stood up from the table abruptly. "Mom, it's clear we can't have a civilized conversation with you. Every time we try to help, you interpret it as an attack. Help me? Entering my house without permission is helping me? Using my money without authorization is helping me? Lying about my mental state is helping me? We're not lying, Matthew shouted, losing his temper for the first time. Look at yourself. You're paranoid. You think everyone is against you. Not everyone. Just the three of you. Jack stood up too, assuming his usual authoritarian pose. Helen, that's enough. Matthew is your son. We are your family. If you can't trust your own family, then you really do have a problem. My problem is that my family treats me like a child or a mental patient. Because you're acting like one, Paige burst out, finally losing her sweet composure. A grown woman doesn't accuse her own son of theft. A grown woman doesn't see conspiracies where there's only love and concern. A grown woman protects her rights and her dignity, I replied, standing up as well. Dignity? Jack laughed bitterly. What dignity, Helen? You live in a subsidized apartment, you work cleaning offices, you have no friends, no social life. What dignity are you talking about? His words hit me like slaps. Each one was true, and each one hurt the way only the truth can hurt when it's used as a weapon. Jack, I may not have much, but what little I have, I've earned honestly, and I won't let you take it away from me with lies and manipulation. No one wants to take anything from you, Matthew yelled. We just want you to be okay. Then let me decide what being okay means for me. I picked up my purse and walked to the door. The three of them followed me, all talking at once, trying to convince me to stay, to talk calmly, not to leave angry. At the door, I turned to look at them one last time. Matthew, I'm giving you 1 week to pay me back the $1,500. If you don't, I'm filing a formal police report for fraudulent use of my card. Mom, you can't be serious. I have never been more serious in my life, Jack laughed with contempt. And then what, Helen? You'll live completely alone? You'll die alone in your apartment like some bitter old woman? I turned to him with a calm I didn't know I possessed. Jack, I'd rather die alone than live surrounded by people who despise me. And I closed the door behind me, leaving behind the smell of paella and the feeling of having crossed a line from which there would be no return. On Monday morning, I woke up at 6 as usual, but for the first time in months, I didn't feel that weight on my chest that had been with me since the alarm went off. I stayed in bed for a few more minutes, listening to the sounds of Chicago waking up. The CTA buses roaring down Lakeshore Drive, the distant rumble of the L train, the heels of the neighbor from the 5th floor clattering down the stairs on her way to work. But I was in no hurry. For the first time in 23 years, I didn't have to think about anyone but myself. I got up slowly, savoring the strange feeling of freedom. I went to the kitchen and, instead of making my usual quick breakfast of coffee and toast, I decided to make myself scrambled eggs with ham. I turned on the small radio I'd had for 15 years. A Dolly Parton song came on that transported me to my youth, when I still believed that love lasted forever. As I stirred the eggs in the pan, I noticed something odd. I was humming. It had been months since I had hummed while cooking, months since I had put music on in the morning, months since I had taken the time to enjoy breakfast. The phone rang at 9:30. It was Matthew. I let it go to voicemail. Mom, it's me. We need to talk. Yesterday got out of hand. Call me when you can. At 10, it rang again. Matthew again. Mom, I know you're there. Please, pick up the phone. Dad says you've completely lost your mind and that we should take legal action. But I think we can sort this out by talking. Legal action? Jack wanted to take legal action against me for defending my own money? At 10:30, another call. This time it was Paige. Helen, it's Paige. Listen, I know things got tense yesterday, but we're all adults, right? Matthew is devastated. He says he's never seen you like this. I think we should sit down calmly and talk about what's really going on here. What's really going on here? As if my reaction were an indecipherable mystery instead of the logical response to months of manipulation. At 11, Jack. Helen, it's Jack. I've been talking to a lawyer friend of mine. He tells me that when an elderly person starts showing signs of erratic behavior, paranoia, unfounded accusations toward family, well, that there are procedures to protect them from themselves. We don't want to go there. But if you continue with this attitude, I shut off the answering machine. I didn't want to hear the rest. I dressed carefully, choosing my best blue blouse and the black pants I had bought for parent-teacher conferences when Matthew was little. I combed my hair in front of the bathroom mirror, and for the first time in weeks, I liked what I saw. A 62-year-old woman with graying but well-cut hair, wrinkles that spoke of smiles and worries, and eyes that still shone with intelligence. I was not the senile old woman they wanted me to be. I left the house with a clear purpose. First stop, the bank. I needed to speak with Mr. Ruiz again. "Mrs. Miller, good to see you," he said as I entered his office. "I've been looking into your case and I have some news. Good or bad? Depends on how you look at it. The unauthorized charges were indeed made with your card and your PIN, but we have security camera footage from the ATMs where some of the withdrawals were made. If you decide to file a police report, we have clear evidence." "What kind of evidence?" "Images of your son using your card at the ATM on Clark Street on March 15th at 2:30 p.m. He withdrew $300. I felt a knot in my stomach. It was one thing to suspect it, quite another to have video proof. "Mr. Ruiz, I want to open a new account, solely in my name. And I want to change all the access codes to my banking services." "Of course. And regarding the police report? I'm giving myself until Friday to decide." The second stop was the law office of Mr. Michael Castagno on LaSalle Street. I knew him from years ago because I had worked cleaning his offices. He was an older man, the kind who still believed in treating people with dignity regardless of their job. "Helen, what brings you here? You're not coming back to clean, are you?" "Mr. Castagno, I need to make a will." He was surprised. "Is something wrong with your health?" "My health is perfect, but my family seems to think I'm no longer fit to make my own decisions. I want to leave everything crystal clear in writing." Mr. Castagno listened attentively as I told him the whole story. He didn't interrupt me once. When I finished, he took off his glasses and cleaned them slowly, as he always did when he was thinking. "Helen, what you're telling me is more common than you think. I'm seeing more and more cases of families taking advantage of older people, especially women who have sacrificed a lot for their children. What can I do? Legally, several things. We can draw up a will where you specify exactly how you want your assets to be distributed. We can also draft an advance directive, a living will, making it clear that as long as you are mentally competent, no one can make medical or financial decisions for you. And if they try to have me declared incompetent, they would have to prove to a judge that you really can't take care of yourself. But seeing how you handle yourself, how you speak, how you've analyzed the situation, frankly, I think they would have a very difficult time." I left the law office feeling stronger. For the first time, I had a plan, a strategy. I wasn't just reacting to what they did to me. I was taking control. The third stop was the most important. Dr. Herrera's office. "Helen, I'm glad to see you. I have your test results." "How am I, doctor?" "For a 62-year-old woman, you're in great shape. Cholesterol is a little high, but nothing to worry about. Blood pressure is normal. Blood work is perfect. And mentally," she paused and looked at me carefully. "Mentally, I find you more lucid than ever. Doctor, I need to ask you a favor. I want you to put it in writing that I am in perfect mental health, that I show no signs of dementia, confusion, or incompetence." Dr. Herrera frowned. "Is something wrong, Helen?" I told her the whole story. She also listened without interrupting, occasionally taking notes. "Helen, what you're describing is abuse, psychological and financial abuse. And it's not uncommon. I will write up a full medical report certifying your mental capacity. And I want you to know that if you need me to testify as a medical expert in any legal proceeding, I will be available." When I got home, it was 5 in the afternoon. The answering machine was blinking with 12 new messages. I didn't listen to them. Instead, I unplugged the landline and silenced my cell phone. I made myself an afternoon snack like I used to as a girl in the country. Toast with olive oil, a little salt, and a rubbed tomato. Simple but delicious. I ate it slowly, savoring each bite, while watching the Chicago sunset from my window. For the first time in months, I didn't think about Matthew. I didn't worry if he had eaten, if he was okay at work, if he needed anything. For the first time in 23 years, I spent an entire afternoon thinking only about myself. That night, I had a salad and a yogurt for dinner, watching an old movie on TV. It was Steel Magnolias. I had seen it 1,000 times, but that night it felt like I understood it for the first time. The protagonists were women who had put men at the center of their lives and had to learn to exist without them, just as I was learning to exist without Matthew. At 11, as I was getting ready for bed, the doorbell rang, insistently, for 5 minutes straight. I didn't open it. For the first time in my life, someone was at my door and I decided not to answer. From the window, I saw Matthew in the lobby, talking on his phone with exaggerated gestures. He looked nervous, agitated. He kept ringing the bell for another 10 minutes. Finally, he left. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. No interruptions, no nightmares, no waking up thinking about problems that weren't mine. The next day, Tuesday, I woke up with a feeling I had forgotten, an eagerness to live the day ahead. I showered without rushing, dressed in clothes I liked, not just ones that were practical. I put on a little makeup, something I hadn't done in months. I went for a walk in Lincoln Park, something I had always wanted to do on a weekday but never allowed myself because I had more important things to do. The park was beautiful on that April morning. Retirees played chess under the trees. Young mothers strolled with their babies. Tourists took pictures of the skyline. All this life in Chicago that had always existed while I was cleaning offices or cooking for Matthew or solving his problems. I sat on a bench by the pond, and for the first time, I asked myself, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? The question scared me because I realized I hadn't asked it in decades. But it also thrilled me, because for the first time, I had the freedom to answer it however I wanted. Friday arrived, and Matthew had not returned the money. I hadn't expected him to, but a small part of me, the part that still remembered the little boy who used to hug me when he had nightmares, had held out hope that I was wrong. At 10 in the morning, I walked into the 18th District Police Station with all my documents, the bank statements, the footage the bank had provided on a flash drive, the report from Dr. Herrera certifying my full mental capacity, and a written statement of everything that had happened in recent months. Inspector Martinez, a man in his 50s with a tired face and a smoker's hands, listened with professional attention as I told my story. He nodded occasionally, as if cases like mine were more common than I imagined. Mrs. Miller, what you're describing is a clear case of financial and psychological elder abuse. These cases have increased significantly in recent years, he said while reviewing the documents. Are you sure you want to file a formal complaint? Once we start the process, there's no going back. I'm sure. You should know that your son could face criminal charges. Fraud, fraudulent use of a credit card, possibly coercion. Have you tried talking to him one last time? Inspector, I've been trying to talk to him for 3 months. He only hears what he wants to hear. I signed the complaint with a steady hand. Every word written on those official forms felt like closing a door that had been open for too long. When I left the station, I felt strangely empty. Not relieved, not sad, just empty. Like when you finish cleaning a room that has been accumulating useless things for years. On Saturday afternoon, as I was watering the plants on my balcony that had started to revive with my renewed care, the doorbell rang with an insistence I recognized immediately. This time, it wasn't just Matthew. Through the window, I saw all 3 of them, Jack, Paige, and Matthew, in battle formation in front of my building's entrance. I waited. If they wanted to talk to me, they would have to do it on my terms. Jack was the first to speak when I finally buzzed them in. Helen, we need to talk. This has gone too far. Come in, I said, stepping aside. It's my house, my rules. They sat in the living room as if they were in enemy territory. Paige looked around with that familiar expression of superiority, mentally cataloging everything she considered inadequate or outdated. Jack maintained his usual authoritarian posture. Matthew looked like a scolded child. Helen, Jack began in a controlled voice. Matthew told us you filed a police report against him. Is that true? It is. How could you do that to your own son? How could he steal from his own mother? No one stole from you, Matthew burst out, jumping up from the couch. You're my mother. What's yours is mine, and what's mine is yours. That's how families work. No, Matthew. That's how abusive families work. In healthy families, you ask for permission. Paige intervened with that syrupy voice that irritated me so much. Helen, I understand you feel hurt, but don't you think you're overreacting? Matthew is your only son. Do you really want to ruin his future over a few dollars? A few dollars? $1,500 is 2 months of my salary, Paige. It may be pocket change to you, but it's not to me. Helen, Jack said, changing tactics, we've come to propose something. Drop the complaint, and Matthew will pay you back. Also, we thought maybe you were right about the whole moving in thing. You can stay in your apartment, but you need help. We can hire someone to come a few hours a day. A caregiver? For what? To keep you company. To help you with the shopping, the cleaning, the doctor's appointments. Paige explained. I do my own shopping. I clean my own house. I manage my own doctor's appointments. But you don't have to do it alone, Matthew insisted. We can help make it easier. I stood up and went to the chest of drawers in the living room. I pulled out a folder I had prepared for this moment. Inside were all the documents. The medical report, the new will, the certificates from the bank. Matthew, do you know what this is? I asked, showing him the report from Dr. Herrera. No, it's a medical certificate confirming that I am in perfect mental health, that I don't have dementia, that I'm not confused, that I am perfectly capable of making my own decisions. I put it in front of him. His eyes scanned the official document with the clinic's letterhead. And this? I continued, pulling out the will. This is my new will. Do you know who I'm leaving my assets to? The three of them fell silent. To a foundation for women who are victims of domestic violence. Not a single dollar for any of you. Jack's face turned red. Helen, you're crazy if you think... Crazy? Here's another document. I took out the psychological evaluation I had done with a private psychologist. Full psychological evaluation. Result: perfect mental health, high analytical skills, excellent decision-making abilities. Paige had completely lost her sweet composure. And why did you do all this? So that it's clear that when I tell you to leave me alone, I'm saying it with full awareness and capacity. I am not a senile old woman you can manipulate. Matthew approached me with tears in his eyes. For a moment, I saw the little boy he used to be. Mom, please. I'm your son. I love you. I just want what's best for you. What is best for me, Matthew? For you not to be alone. To have people who take care of you, who worry about you. People who steal from me, lie to me, enter my house without permission, and speak to my doctor without my consent. We did all of that because you were acting strangely. Strangely how? He fell silent because he couldn't give any concrete examples. It had all been his perception, his interpretation, his fear of losing control over me. I walked to the window and pointed to the street. You see that woman crossing the street? She's my age. She lives alone. She goes to the doctor alone, does her shopping alone, makes her decisions alone, and no one considers her incompetent. But you're my mother, Matthew mumbled. Exactly. I am your mother. Not your property, not your responsibility, not your burden. I am your mother, and a mother deserves respect. Jack stood up abruptly. Helen, enough with the drama. Either you drop the complaint or we file for guardianship. Go ahead, I said with a calm that surprised even me. But you're going to need medical proof that I'm incompetent. And I have medical proof that I am perfectly competent. We have witnesses to your erratic behavior. Who? Paige, who barely knows me? You, who haven't lived with me for 24 years? The only valid witnesses to my daily behavior are you three, and you are interested parties. Paige also stood up, definitively furious. You know what, Helen? You're right. Stay alone. Die alone in this miserable apartment. We don't care. We have our own lives. Perfect, I replied. Finally, something we agree on. Matthew looked at me with a mixture of disbelief and something that might have been respect. Are you really going to go through with the complaint? I am. Even if it means we never speak again? The question hurt more than I expected. But the answer was clear. Matthew, if having you in my life means I have to let you steal from me, lie to me, and treat me like I'm useless, then I'd rather not have you in my life. He was silent for a long moment. Is there nothing I can do to fix this? Yes, I said, feeling a door close in my heart. You can start by treating me like a respectable adult instead of a problem child. You can give me my money back. You can apologize for real, not because you got caught, but because you understand that what you did was wrong. And you can show me with actions, not words, that you respect my autonomy and my decisions. And if I do all that, then we can talk about dropping the police report. The three of them left without saying goodbye. Jack slammed the door, Paige muttered insults under her breath, and Matthew shuffled his feet like a punished child. When they were gone, I poured myself a glass of red wine I had bought to celebrate my small victory. I sat on the balcony to watch the Chicago sunset, with that golden light that makes even the ugliest buildings look beautiful. For the first time in months, the silence in my apartment didn't scare me. It was a silence filled with peace, not emptiness. I had lost my son, but I had found myself, and for the first time, that seemed like a fair trade. 2 weeks after that confrontation, on a May morning when Chicago was waking up with that crisp air that hints at summer, I made a decision that would have been unthinkable a few months ago. I signed up for an adult painting class at the local community art center. The idea had come to me one afternoon while I was cleaning out closets and found a watercolor I had painted 30 years ago, when Matthew was little, and I dreamed of having time for my own hobbies. It was a simple landscape of my parents' town, with golden wheat fields under the August sun. I had kept it tucked between the pages of a book, where it had remained, forgotten, like so many other parts of myself. The instructor was an older man, James, who had been a children's book illustrator before retiring. He had the infinite patience that only people who have spent years teaching others to see beauty where they once saw only obstacles can develop. "Helen, you have a very good eye for color," he told me during the third class, as I was trying to capture the effect of light on a bowl of lemons. "Have you painted before?" "Many years ago. Then life got complicated, and I stopped." "Life always gets complicated," he smiled. "But the great thing about painting is that it's always there, waiting for you when you're ready to come back." In that class, I met Carmen, a woman my age who had been widowed the previous year and was, as she put it, reinventing herself at 65. She had been an accountant for 40 years and had never touched a paintbrush, but her landscapes had an emotional force that left us all speechless. "You know what the best part about starting late is?" she told me one day as we shared a coffee after class in the Art Center's cafe. "You're no longer painting to impress anyone. You paint because you like it, because it makes you happy. There's no pressure, no expectations, just you and the colors." For the first time in decades, I had a friend, a person I could talk to about my things, my fears, my discoveries, without feeling like I was being a burden or that I had to worry about her problems in return. Carmen knew nothing about Matthew or the family drama. To her, I was just Helen, the woman who painted flowers with a delicacy she didn't know she possessed, and who made the whole class laugh with her comments on the difficulty of mixing the perfect color for a sunset. One Saturday afternoon, after a month of not hearing from Matthew, I decided to do something I had been putting off my entire adult life. I bought new clothes. Not practical clothes, not cheap clothes, but clothes that I liked. I went to Macy's on State Street, the same place where years ago I had bought Matthew his suit for his job interview. This time, it was my turn. I tried on dresses, blouses, and pants that enhanced my figure instead of hiding it. I bought shoes with a small heel that made me feel more elegant. I bought a perfume, Chanel's Chance Eau Fraiche, that smelled of freedom and new beginnings. The sales associate, a young woman with a genuine smile, helped me coordinate the pieces. "Ma'am, that blue blouse is beautiful on you. It really brings out the color of your eyes." When I looked at myself in the full-length mirror, I almost didn't recognize myself. It was me, but a version of myself that had been dormant for decades. A woman who took care of herself, who valued herself, who bought herself nice things simply because she deserved them. That same afternoon, walking down Michigan Avenue with my shopping bags, I ran into Mike, the electrician who had asked me out for coffee years ago. He was coming out of a bookstore with a book under his arm. "Helen, what a coincidence. You look great," he said with that same charming shyness I remembered. "Thanks, Mike. You're looking good yourself. Do you want to grab that coffee we never had?" he asked with a smile. For the first time in years, I said yes without thinking about Matthew, without calculating if I had time, without worrying about whether it was appropriate or not. We went to a small coffee shop on a side street in the Gold Coast, one of those places with marble-topped tables and veteran baristas who serve you coffee in real porcelain cups. Mike told me that his daughter had gotten married the year before, that he now had a 6-month-old grandson who he was crazy about. "And how about you? How's your son?" he asked. "Matthew is finding his own way," I replied, surprised at how easy it was to talk about him without pain. You know how they are at that age. They think they know it all. I didn't tell him the whole story, not because I was ashamed, but because I realized it no longer took up all my mental space. It was a part of my past, not the definition of my present. Mike told me about his hobbies. He loved photography, especially capturing the lesser-known corners of Chicago. He showed me some photos on his phone, narrow streets in the Pullman Historic District, hidden courtyards full of plants, old men playing chess in small parks. "I like to capture the beauty that people don't stop to see," he explained. "Like me with painting," I said. "I'm learning to paint again." "Really? I'd love to see one of your paintings someday." We made plans to meet the following week. He would show me his secret corners of Chicago, and I would show him my first attempts at capturing light in watercolor. When I got home that afternoon, I realized I had spent 6 straight hours without thinking about Matthew once, without worrying if he was okay, without feeling guilty for enjoying myself while he probably hated me. That night, while eating a tomato and mozzarella salad I had learned to make from watching a cooking show, the doorbell rang. It was Carmen, my friend from painting class. "Helen, sorry to just show up like this, but I was walking in the neighborhood and I thought, do you want to go to the movies tomorrow? They're showing an Almodovar film I've been wanting to see." A movie. I hadn't been to the movies in years. During Matthew's teenage years, Sundays were dedicated to him. His soccer games, his friends, his plans. Later, when he became an adult, my Sundays turned into days of waiting for his call, waiting for his visit, waiting for him to have time for his mother. "I'd love to," I said. We went to the Music Box Theater to see Pain and Glory. I left the theater shaken, not just by the film, but by the experience of being there, of being part of the audience, of having my own opinion about what I had seen. "What did you think?" Carmen asked as we had ice cream at a nearby parlor. I thought it was real, painful but real, as if Almodovar understood that sometimes you have to let go of the past to be able to live in the present. Exactly. That's the lesson I've been learning since I was widowed. Fernando was a good man, but for 40 years my life revolved around his schedules, his meals, his TV shows. Now, for the first time, I get to choose. Don't you feel lonely? Sometimes, but I've discovered there's a huge difference between being alone and feeling lonely. I am alone, but I don't feel lonely. I have my painting. I have new friends like you. I have things to do that excite me. Her words resonated with me for days. Being alone versus feeling lonely. For months, I had feared loneliness as if it were a terminal illness. But now I was beginning to understand that loneliness could also be freedom. At the end of May, Inspector Martinez called to inform me that Matthew had agreed to an out-of-court settlement. He would return the money in full and attend a family mediation course as part of the case resolution. "Do you want to maintain the complaint, or do you prefer to withdraw it with the agreement?" he asked. "I'll withdraw it," I decided. Not for him, but for me. I didn't want to carry that legal burden for months. I wanted to close that chapter completely. 2 days later, I received a bank transfer for $1,500. No message, no call, no apology. Just the money. It didn't hurt. It felt appropriate. It was the perfect way to end our relationship. A cold transaction, without emotions, without pretending there was love where only resentment and disappointment remained. That same afternoon, while painting sunflowers inspired by Van Gogh, I received a text message from an unknown number. "Hi, Aunt Helen. It's Daniela, your cousin Rose's daughter from downstate. She gave me your number because I'm coming to Chicago to study in September, and she said you might be able to give me some advice on student housing and stuff. If you have time, of course. Kisses. Daniela, Rose's daughter." an 18-year-old girl starting college. A girl who called me aunt, not out of obligation, but with affection. I replied immediately, "Hi, Daniela. Of course I can help you. When can you come to Chicago? We can meet up and I'll show you the city." For the first time in months, someone needed me. But they didn't need me for money, or to solve their problems, or to sacrifice my life for theirs. They needed me to share my experience, my knowledge of the city, my wisdom as an older woman. They needed me for what I could offer, not for what I could give. And that difference changed everything. 6 months later, on an October morning when the leaves of the plane trees on the street had begun to turn golden, I woke up with a feeling that took me several seconds to identify: happiness. Not euphoria, not the artificial joy of someone trying to convince themselves that everything is fine, but the serene happiness of someone who has found their place in the world. I got up without rushing, as I had learned to do everything since that spring when my life broke apart and reassembled itself in a completely different way. I made my coffee in the blue mug I had bought at a small ceramic shop at the Maxwell Street Market. A mug I chose simply because I liked its color and shape, without thinking about whether it was practical or if it would match the rest of the dishes. While I ate breakfast, I checked the messages on my phone. One from Carmen. "Helen, are you coming to the gallery opening this afternoon? They say they're going to exhibit some work from students at the Art Center." Another from Mike. "Good morning, beautiful. Do you want to go photograph the autumn colors at Montrose Beach on Sunday?" And one from Daniela. "Aunt Helen, I passed all my midterms. Can I take you out to dinner to celebrate?" 3 people who had written to me because they wanted to be with me, not because they needed something from me. 3 people who had come into my life when I stopped desperately clinging to someone who no longer wanted to be in it. Daniela had become the niece I never had. Every other Sunday, she came over for lunch, and our conversations had become the most unexpected gift of my new life. She told me about her psychology studies, her first college crushes, her doubts about the future. I told her about my painting classes, the exhibitions I visited with Carmen, the corners of Chicago I discovered with Mike. "Aunt Helen," she had said the week before as we shared a quiche she had learned to make by following a YouTube tutorial. "I like the way you talk about your life. You sound like you're just beginning to live instead of like you're at the end." "That's because I am just beginning," I had replied. "At 62, I've started living for myself." It was true. For decades, I had lived for others. For my parents when I was young, for Jack during the few years of our marriage, for Matthew for the next 23 years. I had always been someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's employee, never just Helen. Mike and I had developed a relationship that surprised me with its ease. It wasn't the stormy love of your 20s or the desperate passion of the movies. It was something more mature, calmer, but no less intense. It was the love of 2 people who had lived long enough to know what they wanted and what they weren't willing to tolerate. "You know what I like most about us?" he had said last week as we walked through the gardens of the Alfred Caldwell Lily Pool. "That neither of us tries to change the other. We like each other just as we are." He was right. With Mike, I could be completely myself, the woman who sometimes preferred to stay home and read instead of going out, who got emotional over small things like finding the perfect color to paint a sunset, who had learned to say no without feeling guilty. Carmen had become the sister I always wanted. We shared that special bond of women who have survived the betrayals of middle age and emerged stronger. We went to art exhibits, plays, and lectures on topics that interested us. We had formed a small book club with 2 other women from the neighborhood, and our monthly meetings had become a celebration of mature female intelligence. "Helen, you know what I've discovered?" Carmen had said at our last book club meeting, after discussing a novel by Elizabeth Strout. "That friends in your 60s are the best friends. We no longer have time for nonsense or competition. We just want genuine companionship." That afternoon, I decided to do something I had been putting off for weeks: clean out the last box of Matthew's memorabilia that was left in the hall closet. I had already donated his teenage clothes, given his textbooks to the local library, and kept only the photos that truly made me happy to see. The box contained drawings he had made in elementary school, letters he had written to me during his 1 week at summer camp, handmade Mother's Day gifts with the charming clumsiness of small children. I went through them one by one, but no longer with pain. It was like looking at photos from a previous life, of a person who had been me but no longer existed. The Helen who had saved every doodle as if it were a treasure, who had cried when Matthew became too old to hug her in public, who had made motherhood the sole definition of her identity. I found a letter I had written for him when he turned 18, but never gave him because it felt too emotional. I reread it with curiosity, as if someone else had written it. My dearest Matthew, today you turn 18, and you are officially an adult. All these years I have tried to give you everything you needed, and I think I succeeded, but now I realize that maybe I gave too much of myself to you, and too little to myself. I hope that one day you will understand that a mother who loses herself in motherhood is not a good example for her children. I love you, but I also need to love me. Your mother, Helen. How prophetic I had been without knowing it. It had taken me 23 more years to understand what I already sensed at 41. I kept only the things that truly made me smile and donated the rest to a children's shelter. It was my way of definitively closing that chapter, transforming painful memories into something that could serve others. That night, as I ate dinner on the terrace I had set up on my small balcony with plants and warm lights, I reflected on the journey I had taken. 6 months ago, I was a broken woman, betrayed and humiliated by the people I loved most. Today I was a whole woman, surrounded by people who valued me, with my own projects and a future that excited me. It hadn't been an easy path. There had been weeks of crying in silence, of doubting my decisions, of wondering if it was true that I was losing my mind. There had been nights of real, unchosen loneliness, where I even missed the difficult conversations with Matthew. But it had also been a process of extraordinary rediscovery. I had learned that I could live alone without feeling lonely, that I could make decisions without consulting anyone, that I deserved respect simply for being who I was, not for what I gave to others, that at 62, I could start a new life if I had the courage to leave the old one behind. Last Thursday, something happened that perfectly summarized my new situation. I was at the supermarket doing my shopping when I saw Paige in the produce section. For a second, my stomach clenched with the automatic reflex of conflict. But then I realized I no longer felt anger toward her. Not even contempt, just indifference. She saw me and approached with that tense smile I already knew. "Helen, how are you?" "Very well, thank you," I replied with genuine cordiality. "You look different. More radiant." "Thanks. How's Matthew?" Good. He started therapy, you know. He says he needed to understand some things about himself. The information registered as a neutral fact. I was happy for him, but I felt no need to ask for details or get involved in his process. That was his path, just as this was mine. "I'm glad he's doing well," I said sincerely. "Helen, he knows he was wrong. He knows things were handled badly. We all make mistakes, Paige. The important thing is to learn from them." We said a cordial goodbye. As she walked away, I realized I hadn't felt the slightest temptation to ask if Matthew wanted to see me, if he was thinking of calling, if there was any chance of reconciliation. His process was his. Mine was mine. That night, while writing in the journal I had started on Carmen's recommendation, I asked myself a question that would have terrified me 6 months ago. Would I be able to forgive Matthew if he came to sincerely ask for it? The answer surprised me. Yes, I would be able to forgive him, but I no longer needed him. I didn't need his love to feel whole, or his approval to make decisions, or his presence to be happy. If he came, he would be welcome. But if he didn't, my life would continue to be full. And that, I discovered, was the difference between the desperate love I had felt before and the free love I had learned to feel for myself and for the people who now surrounded me. I closed the journal and prepared for sleep with the deep tranquility of someone who knows that tomorrow will be a good day, simply because she was alive to live it. For the first time in 62 years, I was completely free, and that freedom tasted glorious. Have you ever felt like you're living someone else's life instead of your own? Do you know someone who has had to choose between family love and self-respect? Tell me about it in the comments. If this story has touched your heart, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel so that this message can reach someone who needs to hear it, because we all deserve to live with dignity, regardless of our age.